So let's go ahead and exit my PowerPoint. And you'll see that this is basically a Frame virtual desktop that I'm using for this presentation. So I've been using Frame the entire time. In this case, this is basically a Windows Server 2016 based VM that is running on my MacBook Pro, right? This is running in GCP out of GCP in California, which is near Los Angeles. How you know you're in Frame? Well, we have this Frame terminal toolbar at the very bottom that provides a lot of really good session state metrics, performance metrics, as well as features and functionalities for your end users to leverage, if enabled for that account. So the first thing, really in the end user computing space, when you talk about virtual desktop, virtual applications, one of the typical complaints is that, hey, my session is slow. And a lot of the times the reason for that is because the connection, right, from the end user device into the virtual desktop is not great for whatever reason. Maybe they're, when they're working from home, but then they move into like a coffee shop with a poor bandwidth or latency. So with Frame, we'll tell your users what is your bandwidth availability of your current connection, your current ISP. Is it 1 bars? Is it 5 bars of service, right? Kind of just like your cell phone, right? This really kind of very quickly sets user expectations in terms of what they can envision their experience to be. We'll also tell them what the real-time round-trip latency is from their endpoint device into their Frame VM. You'll see that right now I'm getting about anywhere from 40 milliseconds to 50 milliseconds of round-trip latency. And then we'll also tell them what the distance to their VM is that's hosting their session. So I'm working from home. All of Nutanix is now working from home due to COVID-19. And I'm at home in Denver. And this particular, again, VM is hosted out of GCP in California. So it's about 830 miles away between Denver and Los Angeles. We'll also tell them, hey, how long has your current session been active? And if there's a max session time that's been specified by the administrator. So we have an 8-hour time specified for this account. Again, this is configurable by the administrator. And I've been using this session now for about 1 hour and 20 minutes, okay? The other thing we can show your users, if they enable it, is that you can show them the real-time bandwidth utilization of your session. And what you'll notice is that when nothing's happening within my virtual desktop, I'm not typing, or I'm not playing any kind of videos, or I'm not dragging things around, Frame basically uses 1 kilobit per second, right? It basically goes into a heartbeat mode, which is built into our protocol that basically says, hey, if nothing's happening, right, we're gonna basically stop sending any kind of traffic over the wire. So this can really help save on overall bandwidth utilization. As soon as I move things around, right, and drag things around, you'll see that Frame will automatically spike and use whatever bandwidth is available based on what is configured for the account, as well as what is available from your local ISP, right, to provide the best possible user experience. So let me kind of show you that. So if I were to go to my gear icon and go to settings, you'll see that, for this account, I have it set so that I can consume up to 16 megs of throughput for video and up to 128 kilobits per second, right, for audio. These can be, hard capped by the administrator. It can be changed or set for that your users can change it on the fly, right? So it really just depends on what you want to provide. So I have a really good internet connection at home. I have, I think, like 800 megs of throughput, so quite a bit. So let me kind of show you what is possible through Frame. And again, keep in mind you're watching this, around the country over a Zoom session. So there may be some lag, but let me go ahead and open up some advanced metrics and just keep an eye on the frame rates per second, right? In this little control panel that opened up. And let me kind of play just a high resolution video. So this is running, obviously YouTube, this is running on 1080p. So a resolution, I can go, bigger screen here. And you'll see that I'm getting, 40 to 50 frames per second, right? And you'll see that the bandwidth that I'm consuming is anywhere from about 4 to 8 megs of throughput. And Frame's protocol will automatically consume whatever bandwidth is available to it to provide the users the best possible user experience. So for me, this video is playing, in 1080p. There's no latency to it, right? It's as if it was playing on my local browser, and you can basically see that, right, based on the frame rates per second here. Okay, but not everybody has, that much throughput, and Frame will automatically adapt itself based on what is available. So if I were to go to my settings and I were to, let's say, cap, my video bandwidth, let's say under a meg, let's say 800K, right, and hit apply. Well, what happens is that Frame will automatically start throttling its bandwidth utilization such that the video bandwidth is less than 800K, okay? And you'll see that Frame has automatically adapted the performance and resolution of the video accordingly, okay? I can even tell Frame, and Frame, in the bottom left is saying, hey, your bandwidth has been lowered by quite a bit, right? So be aware of that. But I can even tell Frame, you know what, I'm really starving for bandwidth. I want to just have a decent experience, right? But I'm gonna go ahead and go, grayscale. So Frame can even go black and white on the fly and consume even less bandwidth, right, for this video, and still provide the best possible experience to the end user. And then as soon as Frame detects that it's got better bandwidth, available to it, it will automatically start consuming that. So if I were to go ahead and change this back to where it was at 16, you'll see that slowly over time, Frame will realize that it has additional bandwidth. So I'm just going to start giving you better resolution, better performance, and consume more bandwidth accordingly, right, over time. So this is kind of what I mean by the ability of our protocol to automatically adapt itself in that kind of situation. All right. So I'll go ahead. And by the way, this particular desktop does not have any kind of GPU on it. This is all running on a CPU-based instance. Okay, so we mentioned a couple of other features in Frame that really makes it valuable for work from home. The first would really be around the ability to get access to local files, right? So if I were to click on my, my Windows Explorer within Frame, you'll see a few things. One is I have an uploads folder, right? That is empty, and I have a downloads folder that's also empty. So let's say I wanted to get, the ability, if I wanted to move my, this PDF, let's say from my local desktop into Frame, all I would do is go ahead and just drag and drop that anywhere over the Frame window, right? Let it go, and Frame will automatically upload that document directly into the uploads folder, right? So you should see that right there, okay? So you'll notice that I don't have any kind of local drives mapped to my local device. It's basically the local C drive is the C drive on my Frame desktop, but there's no, my MacBook, hard drive is not mapped in here, right? So this is kind of how easy it is to get files from your local device into Frame. Vice versa, if I go ahead and drag this file into the Downloads Now folder, what Frame will automatically do is prompt me to save this somewhere locally on my endpoint device. You'll see that, hey, you want to download this? I want to put it in my downloads folder. Sure, I'll hit save. See if Frame will just download that file, directly into my local desktop, right? I'll close that. So that's kind of drag and drop file access, like I mentioned. You can always just click on the uploads folder if you don't want to drag and drop. So that's also viable as well. Okay. Let's talk about printing. So if I were to click on my system preferences on my MacBook, you'll see that if I go to printers and scanners, all I have is this HP Envy 5000 series printer that I have at home. Okay. So this is the only printer I have at home. And if I were to buy another one on Amazon or Target or Best Buy, right, I can plug it in and and use it. How Frame handles it is simply if I were to, let's say, go to back to my PowerPoint, and go back to my webinar deck, and let's say I want to print this document, I can go to print, right? And let's say I want to print the, the first slide or something like that. And you'll see that Frame will direct me to print what's called a Frame printer, okay? And this printer is really, the only printer that's available outside of the XPS document writer and OneNote. But again, when I print this document, what Frame is doing is it's automatically going to convert this document into a PDF. It's going to stream that document directly to my MacBook. And it'll actually prompt my MacBook to present to me whatever printers I have locally on my MacBook. So let's do that. I'm going to hit print. And you'll see that Frame is going to be preparing to print. And you'll see it's done. So it took about a couple of seconds. This is now a PDF that's already residing on my MacBook. It's already been downloaded. And you'll see that my HP Envy is right there, right? So this makes it very easy for administrators who are worried about supporting just a wide variety of printers when users are working from home to not have to worry about it all. Is that as long as that document can be rendered into a PDF, Frame will automatically support that. All right. So that's kind of what it looks like, moving, within the Frame session itself. Like I mentioned, we have native integrations built in with some of these cloud storage providers. So I have Dropbox, Google Drive, and Box enabled, but they are Two of them are connected and one of them is not connected. So if I were to go to my Windows Explorer, you'll see that my, my Google Drive is my G drive, right, for my Nutanix stuff, and my Dropbox, my personal stuff, right? You can always integrate with things like OneDrive and Google File Stream, natively, installing them directly onto your Frame virtual desktop image. That's doable too. If I wanted to, let's say, integrate, Box for the first time, I simply click on Box, hit connect, and you'll see that Frame will prompt me to enter my Box credentials. The next time I log in, Frame will save these basically as a token on our backend. So every time you log in, users don't have to re-enter their credentials every time. Okay. So I'll go ahead and exit that. So this is kind of what it looks like again for the end users. If I were to go ahead and just show you the control plane, I'll go ahead and disconnect from my session. If I disconnect, it puts into a disconnected state. We do have session time limits set for idle and disconnect timeout and max session timeout that you can set as an administrator. Actually, real quick before I show you that, we also support multiple displays, right? And we can do that even within a browser-based solution. So I can't show you two desktops within Zoom, but if I were to minimize this, I can go basically to manage displays, add a separate second display, right? Drag it over here, hit start streaming. And you'll see that what Frame will do is automatically map another a desktop within the same VM, right? So Frame's able to know, hey, this one's over here, this one's to the right, right? And now if I were to open up my PowerPoint again, right, you'll see that I can now drag this right from one to the other, right? So again, making it very easy to support a wide variety of configurations, even from a multi-monitor perspective. All right, let me close that. Let me close my second monitor. Let me expand this a little bit more. And let me go ahead and disconnect from my session. And when I do disconnect, this will take me into what is called Launchpad. So Launchpad is the end user portal that is included with Frame out of the box. This is what your users will see when they log in to Frame using whatever IDP that you choose. And you can choose a custom background image. You can put your logo on this background very easily. If your users have access to multiple different accounts within Frame, so remember that hierarchy again: customer, organizations, accounts. There's actually a fourth one called Launchpads, right? That's really kind of how you provide access. But if your user has access to multiple accounts and multiple Launchpads, you'll see them all show up here. So obviously I'm an internal Frame administrator in our internal environments. I have a ton of Launchpads. Most of your users will see something like like this if you're doing just applications, or like something you saw previously, right, where it's just a desktop icon, where you can do both. Okay. If I were to go ahead and click on my name in the upper right, if I am a account admin at a minimum in the environment, I'll have a link here that says go to dashboard. This basically will take me into the control plane at the account level, right? And if I wanted to go back, I simply click on Launchpad. I'm back where I am, right? So if I were to go back to my Launchpad, I'm sorry, my dashboard, this is basically the control plane at the account level. So that three-tier hierarchy, customer, which is Nutanix demo in this case, Z, which is my organization, and then Z pooled, right, is the name of the account. So every account in your overall environment will have its own dashboard associated with it. And this is where you as administrator would make changes to the environment, provision access to users, add additional capacity in terms of provisioning more VMs into the environment, and making any kind of policy changes, and view any kind of monitoring analytics, right, for your particular account. So Sandbox, which is the second tab here, this is really your gold image when you're talking about a non-persistent account. So this is where you would, as an admin, install new applications, make any application updates, install any kind of OS hotfixes, and make those changes, test it, and put it into production. Right? We are desktop as a service, which means we provide you this framework, right? As a service, but our customers are still responsible for making changes to the applications and updating them. And same thing with the operating system, right? We're not providing you application management or OS management, right? That's done by our customers, okay? So if I wanted to make a change, I simply would, power on my Sandbox, right? And what Frame will automatically do is, because we are automatically updated, the first thing Frame's going to do is it will actually check to see if there's a newer version of Frame available, right? And it'll basically reach out to the Frame control plane and say, hey, is there a new version? And I know for a fact there is. So as soon as Frame boots up and starts the sandbox, Frame will actually automatically put the sandbox under maintenance, because it's automatically going to download the latest version of Frame, right, install it before booting up the sandbox again. So then next time you publish into production, you'll have the latest version of Frame every time, okay? So we'll let that go ahead and let that go. But we also have the ability to create backups of your gold image, so that, if you make a mistake and you push out a wrong change, you can always click on, the last working version and restore it into production, okay? By default, every time you publish a new version of the sandbox into production, Frame will automatically create a backup for you of that instance type. But you can always create a manual one at any given time. You can even tell Frame to schedule a specific backup at a certain time and time zone, and tell Frame how many to keep before deleting previous versions. So that's all doable within Frame, okay? Another very, very cool aspect about Frame is that, especially for specifically for non-persistent accounts, is that just because your gold image has a certain resource allocation to it. So in this case, this is a what we call Air 8 gig machine, which in GCP in this case is a N1 standard 2, right? So it's got 2 vCPU and 8 gigs of RAM. And you'll see, by the way, there it goes, right, under maintenance. So that's exactly what's happening. Like I mentioned, what Frame is now doing is automatically updating from 7.16.13 to 7.16.15, which is the latest version of Frame. And as soon as it updates, it'll automatically boot up the sandbox again, so you can then make your changes. But go back to this again, right? So just because your sandbox image is one instance type, it doesn't mean that's what you're limited to when you deploy your actual production VMs. And what I mean by that, and see right there, by the way, 7.16.15 right there, is that if you go to Launchpad, what you'll see is that you can deploy your production VMs into any kind of instance types we support in that public cloud provider, right? In this case, GCP. Or if you're deploying on-prem, you can actually create whatever instance types you want. So you can create a 1 vCPU, 3 gig of RAM machine if you really wanted to. So really, whatever makes the most sense for your use cases. Obviously, in the public cloud, we're limited by the instance types available in those public cloud providers. But for example, I can deploy to a 2 vCPU, 4 gig RAM machine, or that 2x8 that our sandbox is running on, all the way up to a Pro 60, which in GCP is 16 vCPU, 60 gigs of RAM, and a GPU, right? So if I were to go ahead and create a new Launchpad, and let's say this is for work from home test, right? I can create this Launchpad. I can do a couple of things. One, I can click on the, if I'm doing applications, right? I can select the applications I want to deploy to or deploy for this particular Launchpad, maybe Adobe Reader. I can give access to Excel, Windows Explorer, Google Chrome, Microsoft Teams, Notepad, Outlook, and let's say Slack and Word. Okay, and that's it. So that's the first thing I can do, right? So if I click on Save, I can now assign this to a specific user or user group, but I can also select what kind of instance type I want these users to launch from. So maybe I can say, I want to give them the ability to choose between a Air 4 and an Air 8. So if I hit Save and go to Launchpad, you'll see that this new work from home test is now available. And in the bottom right-hand corner, right, the users can choose between whether I want to launch from an Air 4 gig machine or an Air 8 gig machine. Both are available, okay? So that's kind of how flexible and extensible Frame is, not just from an application subset perspective, but also from a resource allocation perspective, okay? All right, we're running short on time, but other things I want to show you real quick is settings. So like I mentioned, we really wanted to make Frame not just easy and a great experience for end users, but we really wanted to make it really easy for administrators to pick up and learn how to manage and make changes to Frame. So even if you're not a VDI expert, right, that doesn't matter, because first of all, we have really great documentation. And then as you will see in this presentation, right, in this demo, is that a lot of our most of our configuration changes are just single click. So if you want to enable things like Google Drive or Box or Dropbox, single click. If you want to say, I want the ability for users to print, single click enablement, right? I want them to be able to download, single click as well. So you can do it at the account level and hit save. You can make changes to network configurations, changes to time limits to users. These are all doable at the account level. You can also do it at the Launchpad level. So for this new work from home test, I can click on this Launchpad and go to session settings. I can even uncheck use account settings and then provide a different set of policies, right, configurations specific to this Launchpad, right? And then how I would assign this Launchpad to users? Well, it's under the Users tab. I can select the authentication IDP that I want to use. I can, for example, I have our internal Okta configured here in this environment. So I can go to SAML2 permissions. I can say, you know what, when Okta group equals, let's say, work from home, test users, right? Well, when they log in, they are a Launchpad user of work from home test. I hit save and I'm done, right? So when the users log into this environment, they log in using, in this case, Okta, and they belong to an Okta group called work from home test user. They will be able to view this brand new Launchpad that I've created for them, okay? All right, so real quick, one last thing I'll show you before I go back into the slides and wrap up is that I mentioned the ability to launch frame sessions without using our Launchpad. So if you click on the new Launchpad work from home test, right, and you click on this icon again, you'll see that we have something called Chrome OS integration. If you click here, you can actually select your identity provider. So in this case, I'll again select Okta, which I've already configured. You can select the instance type you want the session to launch off of. So for this Launchpad, I have two options. So I'll select, let's say, an Air 4. And then you can just basically copy any link right within here. So if I want to do, let's say, a Notepad, I copy this to my clipboard. I can now save this link as a shortcut, put it on my internal, company portal, put it, anywhere I wanted to outside of Frame even. And then if I were to go ahead and, let's see, copy and paste that into my Chrome, you'll see that this is basically launching this Frame session directly through this URL. This URL is not user specific. You still have to provide permissions to your users within Frame, right, based on their IDP and based on their user credentials. But you'll see that this is a way for you to quickly provide access to desktops, to applications, and not have to introduce another different portal that your users may not be used to, right? So another great way of quickly providing these resources without causing a lot of end user confusion, especially in a work from home scenario, okay? All right, so let me go ahead and go back to my desktop and we'll wrap things up in terms of just a recap and talk about, our work from home trial account. So I'm gonna reconnect back to my desktop. And there I am again. Let's go ahead and go full screen. And I'll go ahead and launch my PowerPoint again. Get my work from home one, go full screen. All right, so. All right, so kind of summarize why Nutanix Xi Frame. So, we talked about these 5 key things when you're talking about work from home. First is end user device support. So Frame, we support any device with HTML5 browser. You don't have to worry about installing any kind of client or agents or plugins. If the browser can basically play a YouTube video and you can rescale and resize that video, it'll work with Frame, right? That's kind of a pretty easy test. And then, things like our ability to do print to PDF, right? Makes it really easy to support and local printer support for a wide variety of printers, which is typically a consideration with work from home. Secure access, right, to the environment, authentication to the environment, identity management. We talked about that streaming gateway appliance that you can put into your DMZ that provides reverse proxy support for Frame. Alternatively, if you have an existing VPN solution, you can certainly use VPN and allow your users to come in externally through that. And like I mentioned, we integrate with most SAML 2.0 based IDPs as well as Google authentication. So as long as you have that IDP provider, you can integrate that with Frame. And then we have really granular, role-based access control for your administrators. So you can make them an account admin or an org admin or a full customer admin or a limited customer admin. So a lot of built-in configurations from a permissions perspective, right? Providing access to corporate desktops and apps and data. So Frame, we support the ability to do both a full virtual desktop, which is what I'm in right now. I showed you the ability to launch virtual applications. We have built-in integrations with things like OneDrive and Google Drive, right? That makes it easy to connect it with a single click of a button and be able to allow your users to access those repositories. And then if they need to access any kind of files, locally, drag and drop makes it really easy to do so. both into Frame and out of. And again, you can disable or enable those features as administrator. Next would be around infrastructure. So, at the end of the day, right, you still need to have some kind of infrastructure, whether it's public cloud or private cloud, to support these VMs that will be hosting these sessions. So we really want to give you as much flexibility as possible. So again, you can deploy into the 3 major public cloud providers or on-prem on AHV. And then a single Frame subscription allows you to move your virtual desktops access, right, between the two. So if you want to start off within, let's say, Azure for the next few months because of coronavirus, right? But let's say afterwards you want to save on costs and you want to buy on-prem servers and nodes to support it, you can certainly do so. And you don't need to rebuy your Frame subscriptions to do that, right? You just need to purchase the AHV nodes to support it on-prem. And then we also have a very flexible subscription term. So we're not locking you into a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year contract. We have monthly granularity, so you can buy Frame for 3 months, for 6 months, for a year, all the way up to 5 years. It really just depends on what your usage is. And then lastly, I think this is probably the most important, right, is how fast and how quickly you can deploy and manage. And I think in our demo, we kind of showed you just how easy it is to set up an environment, really design the solution with consumer grade simplicity, not just for the end users, but also for the administrators, right? You can quickly integrate with your public cloud accounts with Frame, leveraging native APIs within those public clouds. And really, for like basic deployments in public cloud, you can really deploy thousands of desktops in just a matter of hours, right? It really just depends on how fast you can install those applications onto your gold image, and get those deployed out. All right, so I know we're already a little bit over, but just wrapping up, we are offering a work from home trial with Nutanix Frame. You can sign up nutanix.com/workfromhome. I wouldn't sign up until you figure out where you want to deploy your actual workload VMs. So we're basically waiving the Frame subscription fees for these 30 days. You can have unlimited users access. You're still responsible for paying for your public cloud usage or your on-prem deployment during this trial period. And we're also not providing kind of Microsoft licensing or third-party application licensing. It's really, we're waiving the Frame subscription fees, right, during this period. We also have the ability for certain customers, if you want to, you can also use Nutanix's public cloud subscriptions, so Azure, AWS, and GCP, and you basically pay us for the usage, and then we would pay Azure, AWS, and GCP on your behalf. So that's also an option for you. I think with this trial environment, if you choose to use our public cloud, we give you, I think, $25 of public cloud spend to kind of get started. And if you want to use more than $25, then we can automatically invoice you for that as well. All right, so just a few FAQs around this. And we also, if you go to our website, there's a much deeper list of FAQs for this trial. Again, this is not including kind of Microsoft Office or application-specific licensing during this trial. At the end of the trial, you will lose access to your Frame environment if you don't extend it or purchase Frame. But we typically will keep the environment around for at least a week. So even if you lose access to it and you want to reactivate it, you're not going to lose any configurations you have, and you are able to take your trial environment and take it into production. So any kind of configuration work you do with it, you can certainly, you wouldn't lose that work if you were to take it into production. And also from like a implementation perspective, we have a fantastic documentation site that I'll show you in a couple slides. But most of our customers, you can choose to self-implement, right? We also offer Frame professional services for a fee that you can also engage with to have one of our Frame solutions architects work with you to get your environment set up and deployed. Typically, that's typically anywhere from like 20 to 40 hours of pro services. So it's not a huge investment. So anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 is typically the investment spend from a pro services perspective. Okay. We already talked about this, but again, we have 2 subscription models, a named user and max concurrent instance. So we already covered that. And then if you're wondering, hey, how do I get a quote to purchase Frame? Well, you can either reach out to your Nutanix account team or your Nutanix channel partner and ask them for a quote. You can also email frame-sales@nutanix.com for any questions related to Frame. And then lastly, we have a lot of resources for you to look at. So we have our Frame product page, nutanix.com/frame. We also have a Frame blog where we post kind of latest features and updates and thoughts from the team. That's also available at nutanix.com/frame-blog. And then all of our technical documentation in terms of how to configure Frame is all available at docs.frame.nutanix.com. And lastly, again, any questions you have, we have a team of Frame sales specialists and solutions architects ready and willing to assist you guys. Again, just email frame-sales@nutanix.com and someone will get back to you very quickly. All right. So sorry for being a few minutes over. Just want to thank everyone for your time. I know this is a very trying time for everybody. We're just trying to make it a little bit easier for you guys to address work-related items. But certainly the most important thing is to stay safe. Keep your family safe. And yeah, we're here to support you. And so from our Nutanix family to yours, thank you. And yeah, appreciate the time and stay safe out there. Thank you.